Samsung's next tablet is already showing up in places it shouldn't, and one leaked spec is going to annoy a lot of people. The Galaxy Tab S12 Ultra looks set to keep the exact same battery as last year, and the evidence for a launch is piling up fast. In this video, I will walk you through everything we know so far: the battery leak, the chip inside, the launch window, the price worry, and whether you should actually wait for this one or just buy a tablet now. Let me start with the leak that got everyone talking, because it is the battery. A report claims the Galaxy Tab S12 Ultra will carry a rated capacity of 11,374 milliamps and a typical capacity of 11,600 milliamps. That number matters for one simple reason. It is the same battery the Tab S11 Ultra already has. So if you were hoping the big Ultra tablet would finally get a bigger sell this year, this is not the news you wanted. Samsung looks like it is holding steady instead of pushing forward. The reason is basically physics. These tablets are extremely thin, and thin bodies leave very little room for a larger battery. But there is a brighter side here, and it belongs to the smaller model. The Galaxy Tab S12 Plus is rumored to get an actual upgrade. Earlier reports suggest the Plus could land somewhere around 10,500 or 10,600 milliamps. Compare that to the previous 10,090, and you get a real bump. Now, be honest with yourself about what that means day to day. A 4 or 5% bigger battery is an improvement, but you probably will not feel it in a dramatic way. Your tablet will not suddenly last a whole extra day. Still, more capacity is more capacity, and it is nice to see the Plus moving in the right direction while the Ultra stands still. Charging looks like it stays the same across the whole family, at 45 watts wired. That is fine for a tablet, though nobody would complain if Samsung pushed it faster. For now, plan on the same charging speed you already know. Let me move to the part that should cheer you up, and that is the chip. Digging into the software points to Samsung using the model number MT6993 inside the Tab S12 series. That code refers to the Dimensity 9500, and this is a genuinely strong piece of silicon. Translation for real life. Gaming, heavy multitasking, and demanding creative apps should run smoothly. You are not getting shortchanged on raw power, even if the battery news is flat. There is also a chance the lineup could use a slightly hotter version, sometimes described as a Dimensity 9500 Plus. Nothing is locked in there, so treat it as a maybe. Either way, the performance floor looks high. Now let me talk about the launch, because the signs are everywhere. The Tab S12 and the Galaxy S26 FE just showed up referenced inside the Google app. Google keeps an internal list of upcoming devices that will offer their new owners a free trial of a paid Google AI account. When a phone or tablet lands on that list, it usually means the launch is getting close. Both the Tab S12 and the S26 FE now appear on it. That does not hand us an exact date, but it strongly supports the idea that Samsung is deep into launch prep. This kind of behind-the-scenes paperwork tends to arrive shortly before a product goes official, so when should you expect it? If Samsung follows its usual pattern, we are probably looking at sometime around September. That lines up with last year when both the Galaxy S25 FE and the Tab S11 series arrived in September. There is even a small chance things slide a little earlier, because the Fold and Flip models only appeared on that same Google list about a week before their event. But earlier timing is still just speculation, so do not mark your calendar in permanent ink yet. One more nice detail: Samsung tends to launch its flagship tablets right alongside the Galaxy Tab SE phone of the year. That is why many expect the Tab S12 to arrive next to the Galaxy S26 FE. 2 launches, 1 window. Now let me get to the part nobody enjoys, which is price. There are no pricing leaks yet, but the warning signs are hard to ignore. Memory prices are climbing hard right now, and that pushes costs up for everyone who builds these devices. Samsung has already raised prices on the smartphones it released this year. The Galaxy S26 and S26 Plus saw increases. The higher storage versions of the S26 Ultra went up too. When a company is already lifting phone prices across the board, it is reasonable to brace for the tablets to follow. So if you are budgeting for a Tab S12, pad your estimate a little. Let me quickly cover the rest of what to expect, because the picture is filling in. On design, do not wait for a dramatic redesign. The Galaxy Tab S family is already in a good place. Expect flat edges, a thin and compact body, and premium materials like armor aluminum and tempered glass. The smaller model may sit around 5.6 millimeters thin, with the bigger one near 5.5. On the display, plan on the same familiar sizes, roughly 11 inches for the base model, 12.4 inches for the Plus, and a large 14.6 inches for the Ultra. All of them should be dynamic AMOLED panels with a smooth 120 Hz refresh rate, strong brightness, and rich color. The S Pen stays in the box. That is a real value add, especially if you draw, take notes, or sketch ideas. It is one of the things that keeps these tablets feeling worth the money. Cameras will likely stay modest, and that is normal for a tablet. Most people use these front cameras for video calls, not photography. Do not expect a big leap here. On software, look for Android 16 with a version of One UI 8.x out of the box, plus a long support window of about 7 years. You will also get a stack of Galaxy AI tools, generative help for writing and drawing, and Samsung DeX for a proper desktop-style workflow. So here's the real question. Should you wait for the Galaxy Tab S12? If you are carrying an older tablet, something like a Tab S6 or S7, then yes, waiting makes sense. The jump in performance, software support, and overall polish will feel worth it. But if you already own a Tab S11, this is a harder sell. The battery on the Ultra is not changing, the design is familiar, and the upgrades are steady rather than huge. In that case, you are probably fine holding on to what you have. If this breakdown helped you make sense of the leaks, do me a quick favor and hit the like button, then subscribe so you catch every update the moment it drops. That is where things stand with the Galaxy Tab S12 today. Same big battery, strong chip, a likely September window, and a price you should keep an eye on. I will be tracking every new leak, so stick around for the next one. Goodbye.